Hey everyone! Today, we're diving deep into one of life's biggest questions, something we all think about. What does it actually mean to be happy? We're going to go beyond just feeling good and look at the real science of positive psychology to uncover what a life of genuine well-being looks like. So let's just start with that giant question right there. What is happiness? Is it that burst of joy you feel? Is it a long-term feeling of satisfaction? Or is it something else entirely? It's a question we all have, and luckily, psychology has some really fascinating answers for us. All right, so here's our roadmap for this journey. We'll start by figuring out what true happiness is. Then we'll look at the big debate between pleasure and meaning. After that, we'll explore some key psychological blueprints for well-being. We'll also unpack the difference between flourishing and languishing, which is a game changer, before tying it all together with the pillars of a good life. Okay, first up, to really get this, we have to understand that happiness isn't just one single thing. It's way more complex, a concept that goes so much deeper than just feeling good in the moment. The amazing psychologist Martin Seligman gives us this brilliant way to think about it. He talks about 3 different types of happy lives. First, there's the pleasant life. This is pretty much what we all think of. It's about chasing positive feelings, enjoying good food, laughing with friends. Then there's the good life. This is where you get to use your unique skills, your strengths, to get totally absorbed and engaged in what you're doing. But the deepest level, that's the meaningful life, where you take those strengths and use them for something bigger than just you. And that idea naturally leads us to a huge central debate in psychology. When we're talking about being happy, are we talking about just getting as much pleasure as possible? Or are we talking about living a life that feels full of purpose and meaning? You can almost think of these as 2 different paths you can walk down. So on one path, we have the hedonic view. This is all about what psychologists call subjective well-being. Basically, more positive feelings, fewer negative feelings, and being pretty satisfied with your life. It's the feel-good approach. But on the other path, you've got the eudaimonic view. This idea goes all the way back to Aristotle, and it argues that real well-being, true happiness, comes from living a life of purpose and virtue, from growing and becoming the best version of yourself. This chart here really breaks it down nicely. See, the hedonic side is measured by stuff like your mood and how satisfied you feel. But the eudaimonic side, that's defined by bigger ideas like your sense of control, having a purpose, and that feeling of personal growth. Now, the key thing to get here is that one isn't better than the other. You really need a bit of both for a truly rich, full life. So how do we take all these ideas and actually use them? Well, psychologists have come up with several models that are kind of like blueprints for understanding and building our own well-being. Let's walk through 4 of the most important ones. First up is Carol Ruff's 6-factor model. She argues that well-being is all about positive human functioning. She lays out 6 key ingredients, but let's just zoom in on these 3 big ones. Autonomy, which is that feeling of being in the driver's seat of your own life. Environmental mastery, which means you feel like you can handle the world around you. And personal growth, that constant drive to learn and develop. Let's move on, and you're going to see how these ideas build on each other. Next is self-determination theory. It says that every single one of us, no matter where we're from, has 3 basic psychological needs. And hey, notice any overlap? First, there's autonomy again, that need to feel in control. Second is competence, the need to feel good at what you do. And third is relatedness, our fundamental need to connect with other people. The theory says if you meet these 3 needs, you just naturally thrive. And that brings us to what's probably one of the most famous models in all of positive psychology, Martin Seligman's PERMA model. He came up with these 5 core elements that he calls the absolute building blocks for a flourishing life. The acronym PERMA is super helpful. The P is for positive emotions, things like joy, hope, and gratitude. E is for engagement. That feeling of being in the zone or flow where you're totally absorbed, that's it. R is for relationships, our vital connections with others. M is for meaning, feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself. And finally, A is for accomplishment, that sense of achievement and mastery. Okay, now we're going to pivot to a really, really important idea that completely changes how we should think about mental health. It really challenges an assumption that most of us make without even realizing it. Just think about this for a second. If you don't have a diagnosed mental illness, does that automatically mean you're mentally healthy? Is it really that simple? Are being sick and healthy just 2 opposite ends of the same ruler?
And this amazing chart shows us the answer. According to Corey Keyes' dual continuum model, the answer is a huge no. Mental health and mental illness are not opposites. They're two totally separate things. Look at the grid. You can actually have a mental illness but still have good mental health. We could call that struggling. But here's the kicker. You can also have no mental illness but have poor mental health. That state is called languishing. And the goal, where we all want to be, is in that top right corner, flourishing.
So what exactly is flourishing? Well, it's the peak of well-being. It's not just that nothing is wrong, it's that something is profoundly right. It's when we're feeling good and functioning well, living a full, meaningful life.
And its counterpart, languishing, is that feeling of just being stuck. It's that sense of emptiness or stagnation. It's not quite depression, but it sure isn't thriving either. It's like you're just going through the motions. This is that really dangerous spot we saw in the chart, and it shows why our old way of thinking about health was so incomplete.
All right, let's wrap this up. We're going to bring all these incredible ideas together and see if we can identify the core pillars of what makes a good life. So, if you remember one thing from our time today, let it be this. Mental health is not just the absence of mental illness. True well-being or flourishing isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we have to actively work on and build for ourselves. And what's really incredible is when you stack all these models up, from RIF to PERMA to self-determination theory, you see the same powerful ideas showing up again and again. These seem to be the universal building blocks, having autonomy and control, a sense of meaning and purpose, positive relationships, feeling competent and growing, and of course, those positive emotions. This quote from Martin Seligman just sums it all up perfectly, doesn't it? The whole point of this field of psychology isn't just to fix what's wrong, but to build what's right. The gold standard, the ultimate goal, is flourishing. And with that, I'll leave you with a question to think about for yourself. When you consider that balance between pleasure and meaning, between feeling good and doing good, what are the building blocks that you need to construct your own flourishing life?